Very good evening, everyone. Warm greetings to all joining today. On behalf of Gurujal, a water security and NBS-focused organization with the mission to make India water secure in collaboration with W4W Foundation, which is a think tank instituted as a citizens collective, we welcome you to another session of Wednesdays for Water. Today's conversation is on nature-based solution and its need for India. The objective for Wednesdays for Water is to engage in conversations with experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and you to explore the complex intertwined issues associated with water and the possible solutions. It has expanded since then to have more activities like Fridays for Water and Monday Munchings with Women for Water, besides organizing water workshops, water walks, talks, seminars, special courses, conferences, panels, to continue the water conversations in various possible ways. Please visit the website www.w4w Foundation for more details. Hi, my name is Shubhi and I'm the moderator and the host for the session, and I'm from Gurujal. Today, we will be exploring the need for nature-based solutions in India as our environment faces unprecedented challenges like weather events, biodiversity loss, water scarcity. Nature-based solutions. Nature-based solutions offer innovative ways to address these issues. Today, we have as our speakers, Mr. Samrat Basak and Mr. Dhaval Patil. We will delve together into the depth of nature-based solutions and how it can mitigate climate change impacts, enhance water security, and foster sustainable development. We will further be going deep into the issue with Mr. Pulkit Sharma, who will be the discussant for the day. We will examine the real-world examples and discuss how these solutions can be integrated into our policies and practices. So before I proceed ahead, I would be sharing a little bio about Mr. Samrat Basak. Sam is an experienced development sector professional with 20 plus years of working in and leading a wide spectrum of water-related development projects in India in foreign geographies. He's been a part of the leading teams. As a part of his last employment at the WRI, or the World Resources Institute India, he led water resilience practices in India to execute action research programs, technical advisory, policy development, and innovation support out of many other things that he did. Furthermore, earlier as a part of ERM, he led the integrated water management work portfolio for the Asia Pacific, Middle East, and North African geographies. In that role, he worked to help to drive the sustainable business growth as well as management business-related water risk in a water finite world. You can look more in the chat to learn more about Samrat. Samrat, thank you, Samrat, for being present here. We are super excited to hear your thoughts on NBS. I would just invite you to share your presentation and share your thoughts about the topic so that we can all learn from your learnings.
Thank you, Shubhi. First of all, my sincere thanks to W4W Foundation and Gurujal for inviting me to this knowledge sharing session. It's a privilege for me to be part of this. I'm super excited. So what I'll do, I'll first share my presentation on the NBS and need for the NBS. Give me just 1 second. Also, please let me know if you can see my presentation in full screen mode.
Yes, it is visible, but yeah, now it's in full screen. Thank you so much.
Great. Yeah. Good evening once again. Sorry. As part of this talk, what I'll do is that I'll go a little back to start with. We do talk nowadays quite a lot around nature-based solution, but what exactly are nature-based solution? If we know that very clearly, then we'll be also know that why a nature-based solution is needed as part of our resilience building, adaptation building, and overall sustainability. So to start with, what is nature? Nature is a combination of three aspects. First is the natural process. So what we call the natural cover, hydrological process, carbon storage, and migrations of species. So that's together forms the natural process. The second is the ecosystems, the habitat extent, species function, and ecological integrity. And the third is the diversity. I'm really sorry. Just give me 1 second. I need to take out this. Yeah, it will not disturb anymore. Full screen. Five. Can you see the full screen or sorry? I'm really sorry about
If you are yet to go full screen.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
now it is good. Thank you.
So I'm extremely sorry for this. So now when we talk about nature-based solution, we need to talk all these three things together, and any solution that acts on any of these specific aspects can be called as a nature-based solution. So some solution will be looking at improving the natural cover. Some solution will be looking at improving the gene diversity of species, and some solution will look at, say, how to increase the habitat cover or species function in an ecosystem. Now, what are we looking at? Some of the mega trends today? Our population is increasing, our development is increasing, and so our need for water and other sort of resources. However, that is leading to decrease of our the resource bank, both in terms of food, fodder, and water. It is also impacting the biodiversity, because as we are increasing our agricultural, as we are exploiting our water, it is closely affecting or impacting adversely the biodiversity of the world. And also there is the overarching climate change happening. I will also touch base on how climate change is impacting some of these natural processes. So when you talk about a hotter world, or a warmer world, the end result of that is basically it is impacting the water cycle, natural water cycle that we have, and it results into shifting of the rainfall pattern, more hotter and drier summers, and shorter and wetter monsoons, leading to a number of things. I mean, very recently, Delhi is one of the example where all these things happening at almost at a same time or at a short interval of time. The heading I took from one of the Times of India front heading, that record heat, record rain, and endless pain. And that's the reality of today's India. So now what I'll talk a little bit around our why some of these nature-based solutions are needed at the end. So when we develop, we sort of build our settlements and other things. We change the natural land or natural asset to a developed land. Now, in a natural asset, from a natural water cycle, you have precipitation, you have infiltration, you have evapotranspiration, you have runoff, some part of water getting retained either in ponds, lakes, wetlands, and so on and so forth. The moment we are sort of developing, we sort of covering the entire surface with impermeable layers. Maybe it's bitumen, maybe it's concretes and other things. Immediately, it is sort of limiting the infiltration. It is increasing the runoff quite a lot, because precipitation will be there. As the natural cover is lost, as the water is lost, there is a significant biodiversity loss in these areas, and because of the development, we are also generating quite a high volume of wastewater that is getting into our lakes, wetlands, ponds, and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's treated, most of the time it is not treated, and therefore impacting the water quality of those natural retention capacity of our land. In addition to that, there are solid waste pollutions that also impacting or choking the water bodies that we have. At the same time, we need to also think that our all our systems that we see around us are all interconnected. So if you start working on freshwater, it has immediately impacts both the beneficial or adverse on all other things like food, like energy, and so on and so forth. The moment you start working on the land and forest, it has its both adverse or beneficial impacts on industry, economies, and so on and so forth. So all these things are interconnected. The biggest challenge of NBS is that when you start working or looking at just one thing, say freshwater and land and forest, we a lot of time we tend to ignore some of these interconnected realities, and that's one of the biggest challenge of a successful NVS program versus an unsuccessful NVS program. Uh, So far, I have talked about multiple mega trends and the challenges around the development. When you see it at a global level, there is a great research done by Stockholm Resilience Institute. They have derived something called planetary boundaries. If anything remains within the planetary boundaries, it is a good place for us in a simple term. But the moment anything exceeds the planetary boundary, it start impacting our daily lives. And currently, out of the nine planetary boundary aspects, almost six is currently exceeding the planetary boundaries. Out of and most of these can be resolved or solved. Most of these challenges can be solved using an NBS approach. It is very important to understand some of these planetary boundaries. For example, the climate change, the integrity of the biosphere, the land system changes, the freshwater change, the pollution flows in these two. All these things can be resolved using a nature-based solution. Uh, so, so I'm just talking some of the challenges that we see on a day-to-day level and how nature-based solution fit in those challenges at a very high level. For example, we are seeing flood and heat in our urban regions. NBS has quite a number of proven solutions around reducing the impacts of the flood, reducing the impacts of the heat. We may say that there are engineering solutions. Yes, there are many engineering solutions to reduce the impacts, but engineering solutions has its own limitations. For example, let's take one example: flood. Now, when you try to develop an engineering solution, for every engineering solution there is a design limit. Okay, you can design a flood protection program for say 1 in 3 years return period or 1 in 5 years return period, but in reality, what we see today under a climate change scenario, you suddenly see 1 in 50 years return period rainfall or 1 in 100 years return period rainfall, and your infrastructure has no capacity to protect that flood. In addition to that, as we are sort of building our impermeable layers on the natural cover, no water can get infiltrated. All the water it's actually flowing towards some of those retention areas, and again the engineering designs cannot hold that sort of a water, so it's failing, and we can see it is failing, and as a result most of the cities, most of the areas are getting flooded. And same with everyone. I'm happy to answer any, you we can choose anything. I can tell you how nature-based solution could be beneficial to all these sort of problem statements. Uh, I have mentioned this thing already, that nature-based solution a lot of time is far more cost effective. I will also tell the challenge. Nature-based solution takes quite a lot of land, and in a land scarce India, availability of land is the biggest challenge. So if you consider the cost of land, there the scenario may change a little bit, but it is still far more cost effective. I have also mentioned about the resilience, flexibility, and reversibility of nature-based solution. Nature-based solution are very agile, resilient, flexible, and reversible, unlike the engineering solutions. Having said that, I think the way nature-based solutions are built, especially in the urban region, it is a combination of pure nature-based solution and some engineering solution. So we call it a gray green solution or a hybrid solution. This is more realistic in urban India. It attracts quite a lot of green investment, and it also has quite a lot of co-benefits. I think the co-benefits is a some sort of an unique proposition that separate out a nature-based solution from an engineering solution. It can provide you livelihood. It can help in carbon sequestration. It can help in mental and physical health. It can help with cost-effective solutions and so on and so forth. I'll very briefly talk about a little NBS typology because that's also important from the need of NBS. But before that, Subi, how much time do I have, or do I have to finish it quickly?
You have another 5 minutes.
Okay, fair. There are various different types of nature-based solution, depending on where the nature-based solution will be placed. There are different types of nature-based solution depending on what type of environment you are working on. There are different types of nature-based solutions. Grossly, all nature-based solutions that are working on the coastal front are called blue carbon solutions, which are working on the wetland, peatland, at the intersection of land and water. Those are all teal carbon solutions, and then anything on the land are called the green carbon solutions. There are different types of solutions. I mean, starting from at a blue carbon or a teal carbon restoration of mangroves to at a urban scale, natural stormwater management or green roofs are all called combined as a nature-based solution. It depends on what problem are we trying to resolve, where it is placed, what environmental setting are we working on, and accordingly we need to think what will be the best nature-based solution that could be applicable to such scenarios. Also, when we talk about the different typologies of nature-based solution, there are specific purposes. The purpose at a forestry level could be starting from the planting and regeneration to improve forest management to conservation. When you talk about at an agricultural level, even simpler things like switching from a pesticide and herbicide to a organic fertilizer also calls as a nature-based solution because the flow of such pollutants and impacting the natural water bodies is reduced. So there are various types of agricultural practices also can be called as a nature-based solution. And then I have talked about the blue carbon, teal carbon, and those sort of solutions also. For the next 2 minutes, I will focus on one of the important aspect that has been very little talked about, especially in India, which is blue carbon and why it is needed or why we need to be focused on blue carbon. So far in India, we are working on plantation, forest, afforestation programs, and so on and so forth. Only in the last year, there has been a push from India government to look at mangrove restoration program on a renewed basis, and and uh, and good to see such level of programming coming at a budgetary level and budgetary level allocation. I think mangrove restoration from a blue carbon standpoint is really important because not just because the ecosystem benefit that it is providing, but it also has a great potential around to act as a carbon sink. A blue carbon system is 10 times more effective than a terrestrial forest when it comes to the carbon sequestration. Though it is effective, there are many reasons why these systems are degrading. A lot of polluted water flow happening, lot of solid waste flow is happening, and not just that, even climate change related issues or ocean acidification is also impacting some of these blue carbon aspects. But when it is designed and implemented in a thoughtful way, it can provide quite a lot of carbon sequestration benefit, as well as the co benefits, like it supports the livelihood, it protects the coastal areas from erosion against sea level rise. It treats the polluted water and sediment which is coming from the inland areas. Classic example is the Sundarban mangrove area. The mangrove area gets all the polluted area from the upstream Ganges basin, especially from areas like Kolkata, and it treats before the water goes into the sea, and so on and so forth. So I'll stop over here. I hope that I have, in a very brief way, talked about some of the needs, but it's a very brief and high level. I will be happy to talk in the nitty gritties and details.
Thank you so much, Samrat. I think that is a great foundation to understand the concepts, the pros and cons, the limitations and benefits of every aspect that we are going to pursue. India has spent almost 18,650 CR last year on nature-based solutions, majorly divided under National Mission for Green India, CAMPA, and Manrega, and wetland conservation. While we look at from the perspective, and most of these programs are either under MOEFCC or under the Jal Shakti Ministry. I was wondering how can we look at, mitigating actual problems, like it is flooding in Gurgaon and Delhi. What do we do in terms of nature-based solutions to sort of solve the infrastructural problems, which is also felt and perceived and affects the common human? Like while we're talking about, like when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy theory, it says that somewhere at the self-esteem and actualization level that you start talking about the environment. So how can we also relate with the people who are, somewhere building up the bases and understanding the infrastructural changes and perceiving them more? So I think on that note, I really want to invite Dhaval to share more from his actual on-ground experiences and experiments that he keeps doing. And I'm like a fan of Dhaval's energy when it comes to it. So sharing a little more about Dhaval, Mr. Dhaval Patel completed his BTech in civil engineering and as a DAD scholar pursued MSc in hydroscience and engineering from Technical University of Dresden, Germany. After graduating from College of Engineering in Pune, Dhaval's career began as at a not-for-profit organization, EcoSan Services Foundation, as a project manager in 2011, and since then he has stepped in to become the general manager. Dhaval's work in both these roles demonstrate his commitment to environment protection, its conservation, and sustainable development. His leadership and expertise are instrumental in driving these organizations and sector towards the goals of nature-based solutions. So I'm going to invite Dhaval to share the different And I think that also goes along with one of the questions that I saw in the chat box about DWATs. So Dhaval, over to you.
Thank you, Shubhi, for that wonderful introduction. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Yes, thank you. So good evening, guys. So as Shubhi explained, I am by trade an engineer, very passionate about working in water and sanitation hygiene, and truly believe that interdisciplinary solutions is the way to go ahead. So in today's talk, I'll be speaking more about nature-based solutions for water and giving you few examples from India, few of them where we have actually worked, and few which I've gotten from the literature review which I was doing. So when we are talking about nature-based solutions for water, there is one thing which is very clear is the solutions can be deployed anywhere from the source to the sea. As the river flows, there are numerous sort of solutions which can be placed at the upstream or the downstream end of this river, which will have a lot of impact, not just on the river, but everything around it. We have heard this very specific term called co-benefits in Samrat's session, and I cannot emphasize enough on that word because that is the highlight of nature-based solution. It does not only helps us to achieve one single objective, but it also has a significant impact on the rest of the things around it. So through the examples, I'll be taking you through all the co-benefit. So one thing I need to make clear, there is no debate around the thing that okay. When it
I think your network was a little patchy. Can you come again, please? Maybe the last two statements that you said.
okay, sorry. So there is I was saying that there is no debate that natural and semi-natural infrastructure, which usually consist of nature-based solution, they are not effective or they are not basically efficient enough. So they are as good as the gray infrastructure. It is usually how these two kinds of solution, gray and green solutions or blue solutions, of course, they interact with each other. That actually helps us to understand what are the primary services these combination of solutions can provide to us, and also the co-benefits which comes from making these hybrid solutions possible. So as Samrat explained, and there is also one question on whether DWATs can be called as or termed as nature-based solution. So there is a scale I usually have it in mind: nature and managed. There is one graph later on in my slide as well. So DWATs is not really completely nature-based solution. Neither it is completely managed solution or gray solution. It falls somewhere in between. So we can call it as an hybrid solution, because the design principles of DWATs is to augment and accelerate the natural processes which we find in nature to treat the wastewater. So I would place it somewhere in between. So moving ahead, when we are talking about water management, NBS can address broadly these three issues. One is of water supply regulations. The second is of water quality regulation, and the third is moderation of extreme events. When we are talking about quality, there are a lot of different things which are connected to it, starting with water purification through natural processes, erosion, which usually results into increase of turbidity in rivers. Then biological control, water temperature has a significant impact on the ecology of the river or any water body. Then when we talk about moderation of extreme events, there are riverine and urban floods, drought mitigation, coastal flood control, which Samrat just spoke about. So for all these issues, there are several solutions which can be deployed, which are listed on the slide. But instead of going through each one of them, I usually like to club them by stating that there are certain solutions which allows us to protect the nature. There are certain solutions which helps us to conserve the resources, and the third is there are some solutions which helps us to restore the natural processes or the natural bodies. So all these solutions can be broadly classified into either protection, conservation, or restoration. And then the hybrid solutions, they also fit somewhere in these three. So why NBS for India? Right now, what the way we approach any infrastructure project, we always look at what is going to be the impact of this project on nature or on ecosystem. However, this thought process needs to change. The thought process should be how we can manage the ecosystem so that we can achieve the same objectives which the built infrastructure is going to achieve. So we need to work with the nature and not against it. Most of the NBS applications are very simple and straightforward. We need to manage the vegetation, soil. If we are talking about water, then wetlands and lakes and rivers, they play a very important role. Also, as Samrat has very nicely set up the stage, for climate change adaptation, NBS is the solution. India needs to start thinking about how to work with the nature in order to mitigate and slow climate change as far as possible. So let me start with few examples. I'll be covering all the examples are from India. I wanted to cover examples from India because NBS is not new to India. India has been practicing NBS for several decades. It's just that we as practitioners have come up with a very fancy word for it. To start off with, let's go back 2 decades. Further groundwater was not possible or had to be restricted forcefully. At this time, a local NGO known as Tarun Bharat Sangha, very well known in Rajasthan and across India, they supported the local communities to manage the landscape, to restore the landscape, and also revive the local water cycle and the resources. They started with very small interventions, but soon they scaled up to a level where it had a huge impact. The impact was well documented. It was well researched and validated as well. More than 1,000 villages got access to water. More 5 rivers were restored with the fisheries in them re-established. That's a huge marker for validation for nature-based solution. The groundwater level rose by 6 meter, which becomes a main source of water for most of the rural India nowadays. Then productive farmland, talking about the co-benefits, just managing the landscape helped them to improve the productivity of the farmland, and that too the cover of farmland increased over 60 by 60%. Always we forget when we are talking about these big solutions, big terminologies, we always forget about very simple and straightforward things such as soil moisture and what role it plays, especially when it comes to agriculture and maintaining the vegetation. So the water retention capacity in the soil in this region, it increased by 33%. And not last but not the least, the wildlife, antelopes and leopards, they came back to this region. So excellent example of how nature-based solutions can help develop co-benefits, not just for water, which was for mitigating the droughts, but it also impacted agriculture and wildlife significantly. So this was the most earliest example which I could find, which I thought of sharing with you all, because yes, India has been practicing NBS for a long time. Coming to the next slide is an interesting concept, again with a very fancy terminology called sponge basin principle. So what this slide is taken from a project document called Sponge Handbook. It was developed under a certain project by a group of people, and this project document was on a canal called Buckingham Canal Basin in Chennai city. But keeping that aside, I just want to take you through the basic principles of sponge basin approach. There are four principles: protect, protect the greens and the blue infrastructure which is already present, natural one. Then try to delay the runoffs as far as possible. Um, um, Third is storing the harvested water or the storm water. And fourth is releasing slowly this water into the groundwater aquifers. By doing so, it provides a lot of different benefits. Of course, mainly addresses the problem of urban flooding, but while doing so, it also helps in a lot of achieving a lot of other things. One big impact it has is, as Samrat was trying was has nicely explained about the design of gray infrastructure. Right now, because of climate change, what is happening is a lot of stormwater drains or say sewer lines, they are designed for a certain capacity. What nature-based solution does is it helps us to mitigate those high intensity episodes for which these gray water infrastructure is not sort of designed for. So it helps to accommodate that negative impact which these episodes would have on the human life. So in this specific project, there are a lot of different interventions which the handbook talks about. I'll definitely recommend you all to go through this handbook once to understand the significance of nature-based solutions. It starts with at a very local level, starting with streets. What kind of nature-based solutions can be embedded at the street level? So bioswales, sidewalk planters, bulb outs. So basically, having a vegetation strip along the roadside, which helps to sort of first slow down the runoff, and then slowly it dissipates into the gray infrastructure, that is the stormwater drains. So it reduces the peak of the runoff. The second is sponge open spaces. So basically, all the public spaces which are big enough, we design those spaces in the form of constructed wetlands or constructed ponds. The spaces which are suitable for infiltration of water, we use them for preparing bioinfiltration basins or rain gardens. And the pervious surfaces like plazas or say amphitheaters, these kind of places can be converted into places which holds the high intensity rainfall runoff, and then slowly this stored water can be then either recharged or can be put back into the gray infrastructure. And the last but not the least is sponge buildings, where at the building level, interventions such as rainwater harvesting, green roofs, and detention tanks can be done. Green roofs is a very interesting concept. I want to speak about it for the next a minute or so. Green roofs is highly underestimated sort of solution, especially in case of Indian cities, because it seems to be very small, but has a huge impact when you are talking about the urban surface runoffs. Uh, so green roof is basically the top of the roof. You cover it with a specialized green vegetation, which helps to again slow down the runoffs and accommodate the water and helps to harvest that water. It complements the gray infrastructure very beautifully. Certain countries, like for example, France has sort of put a great example by sort of mandating green roofs for all the public and commercial buildings across France. So that's a really good example which France as a country has set when it comes to NBS. The next is about water quality, and this specific slide is from our own project from Saniverse Environmental Solutions. So we were working in a state where on a project for river rejuvenation, pollution abatement and river rejuvenation both. And in this case, the river which we were dealing with had very high turbidity. Of course, the wastewater which was draining into this river was polluting it. And of course, the parameters such as BOD, COD were quite high. So when we were conceptualizing this project, we did a thorough analysis along the stretches of the river which flows through the urban patch, and we realized that this turbidity is having a very significant negative impact on the river. And the turbidity was because of the upstream sort of activities which were happening upstream of the city itself. So in this river, a lot of sand mining happens and a lot of sediment washing was done in the upstream, which increased the turbidity of the river. Now, the problem was because of the turbidity, the sun rays could not penetrate the water, and hence all the organic matter which was coming through the wastewater, this organic matter could not be consumed by phytoplanktons, and which sits at the bottommost chain, food chain of the river ecosystem, and the food chain could not start, and hence the accumulation of organic matter and nutrients, phosphorus and nitrogen, it started building up in the river. So there were numerous management solutions which we proposed. One was definitely regulating the sand mining and washing of sediments at the upstream, but bank erosion was also one of the major sort of reasons for high turbidity. So to address these issues, we came up with this solution called eco embankment. We identified the spots where soil erosion was highest. We identified spots where the velocity of the river was really low, because we wanted to increase the contact time between the good bacteria and the water. And at these specific locations, we sort of introduced these eco embankments. So eco embankments had three components. The first one was the Gabion channel. The U section is basically formed of big rocks and boulders, and it helps to regulate the flow of the river or the smaller streams. Then the coir rolls were placed on these Gabion walls to increase to help the vegetation to sort of establish itself. So phytoremediation was the objective here. And the third was biodegradable turf mats, which were on the top here. That helped to reduce the soil erosion, which usually happens during the wet weather flow. When the level of the water in the river increased by 5 meters, 6 meters, a lot of soil erosion used to happen. And to reduce that, biodegradable turf mats were introduced. So these combination of solutions helped us to sort of make sure that the river slowly sort of rejuvenates itself with the help of these interventions. So one reason why we introduced these Gabion channels was, so in the first slide, which Samrat talked about, the natural processes, species, right? So here in the Gabion channel, we introduced good bacteria, which help to sort of consume the organic matter and nutrients at a faster rate. These Gabion boulders or the rocks, they help to provide the higher surface area for these microorganisms or bacteria to get attached to, so that when the river flows, these bacteria, they don't get washed off. So we get a very concentrated effect where these eco embankments are placed. So in the combination of these 2-3 components, we sort of provided the solution. So to talk about these turf mats, so these turf mats, of course, there is a little bit of engineering. It's not completely nature-based solution, but helps the nature to grow back. So these turf mats ensure that during the first few months, the vegetation which is planted or which is naturally coming up, it doesn't get washed away during the monsoon. The effect of the wet weather flow was very high in these rivers. So these turf mats were anchored to the soil, and these because we introduced a certain bacterial culture there to improve the degradation of the organic matter. So this kind of solution was proposed in small and medium-sized rivers. The next solution is S-EcoFloat, which is commonly known as floating islands. But in this case, what we did was we accelerated and augmented all the processes. So first is, of course, the phytoremediation. There is vegetation on top of these islands, which have very dense root zone, which you can see in the brown color here. So that is basic principle of floating island. The next two things we added one was this S culture bank, which is like a culture of bacteria, good bacteria. So because these uh, islands are floated on the surface of water, there are high chances that if we dose the bacterial culture, it sort of washes away or it goes and sits into one corner of the river or the pond or the lake. So this culture bank helps to sort of cultivate the culture again and again so that the dosing of the culture need not be done frequently. The third thing we added was a fountain aerator, which could be either electrically operated or even solar operated, which helps to improve the DO around the floating island. Improving the DO is very important for the bacteria to sort of develop and regenerate themselves. So higher concentration of bacteria, good living conditions for them means better efficiency of these islands. So this kind of solution also we have proposed at certain locations where the velocity of the river was really less. Also for lake rejuvenation um, uh, or any stagnant water body rejuvenation, this kind of solution helps. But
Pawan,
one thing,
I'm so sorry to request you to just wrap
running
up.
out of time. Yeah. Okay. But one thing before I end this talk is NBS takes time to show the impact, and hence they are highly misunderstood solutions. So this is very important that to understand that if any monitoring and evaluation is happening of a project which is based on NBS, then significant time needs to be given for these solutions to show their real impact. I'll just skim through the two slides. The three slides were upon managing risk, flood risk, and the drought risk. So how NBS solutions such as ponds, aquifers, and natural wetlands can help with storing the water for droughts. And this last slide, I'll just take 1 minute, Shubhi, because this is very interesting and very relevant. A concept called underground taming of floods for irrigation. So it addresses urban flood problems, riverine flood problems. It also addresses the problem of rain-fed agriculture, which gets highly impacted due to the drought conditions. So when the wet season happens, the principle is very simple. At a basin level, you introduce smaller interventions which help you to sort of slow down, stop, store the water, and recharge the water into the groundwater aquifer. And during dry seasons, you basically extract that groundwater and use for agriculture. Very simple. However, finding the right location for introducing this solution is very important. So with this, I will sort of stop and thank you for this opportunity, and we can take questions now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dhaval. I am really enthusiastic to see all these projects happening on the ground as well. And rightly mentioned, I think, there is such a huge opportunity to use NBS to solve the major mammoth problems that India is going to, it's going to be an impending crisis of water scarcity and flood management. Just for a note, like India spent almost 27,500 crores last year, 23, in the year 23, just to mitigate these or manage these problems, not mitigate, but manage these two problems. So definitely, I think on that note, I would also add, like, while you mentioned that NBS takes some time to showcase the result, it takes a lot of care also to showcase the result in the process. Over to Pulkit now. Just a small introduction about Pulkit. Pulkit is a professional forestry expert and nature enthusiast with over 6 years of work experience in ecological restoration. He holds a master's degree in forestry from the Forest Research Institute, where he developed profound understanding of forest ecology. Pulkit honed his skills during his tenure at the Biodiversity Parks program, working closely under the guidance of Professor C.R. Babu, currently serving as a program manager of forestry at Kurujal. Pulkit leads impactful initiatives in ecological restoration, afforestation, and environmental conservation. His expertise and passion drive him to contribute significantly to preserving and restoring natural ecosystems, ensuring a sustainable future for generations to come. Now I'm going to request Pulki to ask a few questions that we have for Samrat and Dhawal. Pulki.
Thank you so much, Shubhi. Like in the presentation, our experts have demonstrated exceptional leadership and expertise in their respective fields, driving forward the adoption and implementation of NBS. They both showcased innovative and evidence-based solutions, offering valuable insights into the potential of NBS to address pressing environmental challenges, whether it be the functioning of mangroves or green roofs, bioswales, or creating sponge basins. And like Mr. Samrat has very well conveyed how NBS impacts multiple interconnected systems, including carbon removal, freshwater management, and social inclusion. Mr. Dhawal has also discussed very good hybrid solutions like creating eco embankments. And like with my experience, I've witnessed this myself during a forest surveys in the Chambal region, that we have seen the ravines and the cliffs have by themselves created such a resource partitioning in the grasses, that the grasses that are in the water channels are very good as controlling the soil erosion. And those ravines are at itself, the nature itself gives the solution. And also, like, our experts have shared their distinct approaches and the valuable insights they bring in the field of nature-based solution. So I'll be asking my first question to Mr. Samrat, and it will be like, in your experience, how do you measure the success of NBS initiatives, especially in terms of resilience and long-term environmental benefits in India?
Thanks, Pulkit. I think it's a really important question and also a difficult question to measure success. I think the way Dhawal mentioned in the last few slides, that it's a long-term approach. Having said that, I think to me, a successful NBS is when either it provides the intended adaptation or the mitigation benefits. That's point number one. Point number two, it also provides the host of co-benefits. Okay, we have talked about multiple co-benefits coming out of the nature-based solutions. Now, just take a few examples. Say, we are working on. I mean, in the country, city of Delhi worked on multiple lake rejuvenation projects. Okay. Now, the success of such lake rejuvenation, there are multiple things. One, you have treated the water quality. The second, you have created a retention capacity. Third, you are recharging the groundwater. Fourth, a better environment for the people living around those lakes. Fifth, it sort of acts as a hedge during the climate stresses, and so on and so forth. Now, it is really important to understand that there are so many factors as part of success that is coming with a specific nature-based solution. I think I have a one concern which I would like to highlight when we talk about a success of nature-based solution. One is, when we plan or design a nature-based solution, we really need to understand, by bringing in that nature-based solution, are we not impacting somewhere else? There are a couple of terminologies that we regularly use as part of nature-based solution. For example, the additionality. Okay. Now, if something is supposed to be there and you are just ornamental to doing something around there, there is not much additionality it brings to the overall narrative. So if something is bringing really the additionality in terms of the nature or the natural processes, that's when it is called a nature-based solution. Second is another something called a leakage. Now, you are putting up a nature-based solution somewhere in the city or a catchment, but that should not lead to the same activities now taking somewhere else. Okay. For example, you are doing a afforestation program in one catchment. But if that afforestation program is leading to a deforestation program in somewhere else, your net benefit is becoming zero. So the success to me is that it is an additional afforestation program which otherwise would not have taken place if no action was taken at that point of time. So I think it's a little debate that we need to ask ourselves while identifying the key performance indicators for the nature-based solution. But at the end of the day, the benefit that we are extending to communities, the benefits that we are extending to ecosystem, the benefits around the climate adaptation, and the benefits to the larger biodiversity aspect is what is important for nature-based solution.
Yes, thank you so much, Samrat. And I think also I believe that we are also evolving better methodologies and evolving with time so that we can measure the success of such initiatives.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an evolving framework, but one thing also we need to keep in mind is that you can manage or better report something which is being monitored. Now, a lot of time we do not have a baseline. We do not have a proper monitoring evaluation criteria for nature-based solution. Those are primarily an ad hoc solution. Someone just rejuvenated a small lake or small pond. Then it's very difficult to identify a success story around that if you have not have a baseline or if you have not monitored the process. So I think even with the framework, I think the important thing is that we sort of monitor over a longer period of time, identify the ecosystem benefits or the ecosystem valuation benefits that each nature-based solution is bringing to whether it's whether it's a biodiversity, whether it's a people, whether it's a community, or water-related aspects.
Yes, yes, thank you. I completely agree with that.
Pulkit, I think we have just time to take one more question.
Okay, so I'll be taking my next question for Dhawal. So the question is like, could you explain the hydrological principles behind the sponge basin approach and provide data on its effectiveness in different climatic conditions?
So the sponge basin principle, it's not, the answer is cannot be very straightforward to this, because the sponge basin principle is at scale. It has a basin scale, and there are a lot of smaller interventions and larger interventions which need to sort of interact with each other. So the effectiveness definitely can be measured. It can be measured during the rainfall, during the monsoon, because it instantly shows reduction in the peak of the runoff, and also it delays the runoff significantly. But in the longer run, definitely the basin principle helps to reduce the cost which is incurred after the sort of damage has happened. For example, the Chennai floods or the Mumbai floods which happened, had it been the case that NBS was part of these cities at that time, the intensity would have reduced and both the cities would have saved a lot of money in restoring back the city. So I think effectiveness is very subjective and needs to be understood over a period of time for each and every project.
Yes, thank you, Dhaval. And I think the humanity takes a little longer to find the solution, and we are very positive with that now.
Okay. I mean,
Yes.
if I may just add to what Dhawal said, I think Dhawal is absolutely right. What I want to also highlight that a lot of time we consider nature-based solution as the silver bullet, that it will solve everything, but we tend to forget that a nature-based solution can only work if the upstream and downstream actions are also happening at the same time. I mean, Swan City actually originated from the city of Wuhan, where also the COVID originated. But last year Wuhan got flooded. So I mean, and we cannot say that okay, because Wuhan got flooded, a nature-based solution is a failure. It's not that, but the context is also evolving continuously. I think it's a work in tandem. Dawei Dhawal mentioned, we need to identify that if the intensity could have been much reduced in case of Chennai or Bangalore, if there would have been a proper nature-based solution implementation in those cities.
Yes, absolutely.
I think thank you so very much for all the balanced answers, I would say. I love the response while we are talking about nature-based solutions and the science behind it, we don't want to over glorify it and also want to highlight what are the limitations and what one should be cognizant of while designing these solutions. I think Mansi, do you have something to ask? I see your question in the chat
Yes.
box.
I have a burning question actually to both of them, and how far these solutions on NBS are groundwater dependent? Because I have always been resisting any plantation based on groundwater dependency. So, because rainfall is not the year round, but there is wastewater, and of course, NBS is for that. But broadly, if you can give me an idea how much it is groundwater dependent, anybody can answer actually. I have seen, especially the green roof. I mean, being an architect, I have serious concerns of promoting green roof. So, again, with groundwater.
If I just very quickly answer before Dawal, is that when you talk about NBS, the key principle is that how much you are using the indigenous plants for your NBS purpose. The primary idea is that the indigenous plants have their own inbuilt resilience against some of the environmental setting or contextual setting of that local area. Now, if we think about eucalyptus plantation in a groundwater stressed area, it's really not an NBS to me, but it has to be indigenous, which is resilient enough to act in those areas. Not having said that, in addition to that, I think the intent of these plantations also to improve the groundwater table itself, because if you don't have those plantations, the water will just flow away through the bare soil. It will not infiltrate. So it has a sort of a cyclical relationship between a plantation, groundwater recharge, and everything together. So that's my thought. Dhawal, over to you.
Thank you. I would just add on to it, groundwater or groundwater aquifer, rather, is a big opportunity as of now for India when it comes to NBS. One of the slides which I sort of quickly skimmed through showed groundwater aquifers is sort of the biggest storage, natural storage, which is available. However, it comes with a caveat. We need to be very confident and sure about what we are putting in the groundwater when we are recharging it. So we need to be absolutely sure about it. Connecting wastewater and NBS, we have recently completed a research project, and it is about short rotation plantation. So we grow a certain type of plants on wastewater, and we have proved that after the water drains or percolates into the soil, after 3 meters, the BOD of the water reduces by 90%. And at the same time, biomass gets generated, which can be again used for several other purposes. So definitely the synergies are huge when it comes to wastewater management and NBS. However, regulations and a lot of promotion is required for India to get these solutions into practice and scale them up, especially in rural India. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think we've exceeded by 4 minutes, but it was a lovely, lovely session and great insights from both Samrat and Dhawal. Thank you for sharing all the important concepts and balancing it out with your honest opinions and insights gathered through multiple years of experience and the evidences that you've collected. Thank you so much, Pulkit, for engaging the speakers and coming up with questions which can help us understand the depth and the breadth of NBS better. So I think just concluding as we move forward, let's consider how we can apply these strategies in our own context to build a more resilient and sustainable future. Stay tuned for more upcoming sessions and continue the conversations on our platform. There are several questions that we couldn't take. I think even if there are more questions from the YouTube listeners, we'll take them up and circle back with the respective speakers to share their insights if we don't have them. Thank you to everyone on Zoom and YouTube for all the encouragement to make the water conversations meaningful. We shall continue for Wednesdays for Water with upcoming water sessions. I think I would also invite you to look into the next Wednesdays for Water, which is on 10th of July, which is going to talk about the behavioral science and AI in water education. On that note, keep following us on the social media, on the respective organizations. Thank you so much, everyone. A very good evening and a very good week to all of you.